What's up, y'all? Big D here. I figured I'd try my hand at shooting a video in parts, so if it's choppy at the end, fuck it, I don't care. Whatever. Anyway, let's make a snake spine. We have not done one of these yet. So, what we're gonna do is we are going to start with 24 gauge Canthal, and we are going to stagger fuse 36 gauge onto that. So we'll need not quite that much. Need about, what is that, about 20 inches or so. I don't know. I never measure my wire. Probably should. And that'll pretty much finish off that roll. Another one for the graveyard. Okay, so let's hook this guy up. All right. So I got my 36 gauge Canthal. I'm going to take off a decent amount for my loop. We're doing the weighted loop method here for staggering. If you don't know how to do that, check one of my previous videos that I have posted up on the page. Okay. Get that all secure. Make the loop. In there, you bugger. Okay, so now that we got our loop set, use my fingernail to push all that back towards the chuck so it's all set where it needs to be. I always like to do this kind of slow at first because the weights start bouncing around a lot, it'll jump out of its spot. You want to keep that fuse at a 90-degree angle to your core wire. That'll help not having to weave it much when you go to do your final fuse. Start slowly picking up speed. Your weights start bouncing a lot, then slow down. that's how we do that. Now I'll cut off, when I cut it off the spool, I leave about that much on it. Where is it? Right here. I don't know if you can really see that. There. You see that shine on the wire right there? I'll leave about that much because if your space Clapton is tight on here, you're going to want to hold on to that and reverse the direction of your drill to loosen it up so that you can slide it off, because we're going to be decoring this, which can be a nightmare. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention on the first staggered portion of the Snakespine is it helps to have a nice sharp pair of scissors when you cut it off the core wire here, because wire cutters tend to crimp the end, whereas scissors tend to cut it more, and it seems to slide off easier without getting caught on there. And since you're decoring spaced Clapton, you don't want it to compress too much. You don't want to pull it. You want to try to just ease it off of there nice, because you want to try to maintain those gaps as best you can. So a sharp pair of scissors, quick cut. It is 24 gauge, so it helps if you just give it the onion. And then we're gonna just ever so carefully slide that off of there. Okay. So now we're done with this piece of 24. We can either set that up for another day, or I got like 2 pounds of it, so I'm just gonna throw it away. I got enough of it laying around. Here, there, everywhere, I got strands of it. Okay, so now we're gonna take 28 gauge. So we did our initial Clapton on 24 gauge. Now we're gonna recore it with 28 gauge. And what you want to do is you want your 28 gauge to be about 3 inches longer than your decor is, and that will help when we put everything together. So there's one. There's 2. Okay. So remember that we left that little extra piece of wire on the end. Not only does that help us loosen the Clapton if we need to, it also gives us direction as to which end is which. So when we recore, I'm going to slide that 28 gauge in there. Pardon me, I'm kind of blind. I'm going to slide that in there. Okay, it just popped through. And now what I like to do at the very end is put a little hook. Maybe get the light to get that. There, you can see it good enough. I like to put a little hook because this is a very loose. It is very loose on there. It will slide right off the end. And I've lost many decor to my carpet because of it. Or you could put that hook on before you start sliding it in. It don't matter when you do it. Don't have to be fabulous, just a hook. Come on. Pick the damn thing up. Just drop it in there like so. If you have to spin the Clapton in between your fingers, that helps. Well, it doesn't really come up too much with this, but and smaller recoring applications. It helps. Okay, so now that we got our cores in, I'll clip that little tail that we left. I'll clip that off because we don't need it no more. It's just a guide that I like to leave on there for myself. If you don't feel like you need it, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose after your clapton is loose. But I like to leave it on there. Okay. So we got the frames set for the Snakespine. Now we need some ribbon wire. I got 0.4 Canthal. And we're gonna do let's see, we're gonna do this one. We'll do this one with 6-ply. So that's one. That's 2. Whoops. And that's 3. Again, if you don't know how to stack ribbon wire, you're having a hard time, check out another one of my videos. Easiest way to stack ribbon wire. I had a great man show me once how to do that, and I believe he knows who he is. Richie Oliver. Thank you, brother. Okay, so now what I've done is I've attached the 2 frames to the ribbon stack, and I've left about that much bare wire coming out of the fused clapton. You can see it right there, the staggered fused clapton. And then here's my loop. Okay, I've left bare core there so that it can flex while I'm fusing. Now to hold it all together, I'm going to get it all nice and aligned right there. I'm going to take a piece of 0.5 ribbon wire. I'm going to wrap that around a few times. Okay, that one's not working with me. Okay, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna go old school. Just use a piece of tape, fuck it. I'm done screwing around with this ribbon wire. There we go. That's a long enough piece, if I can get a hold of it. Ribbon wire bind this end. Just go around a couple of times. Things are popping out of place here. Get out of my way. Get that all where it needs to be. Okay. Normally I'd wait till I hot glue these to clip them, but they're going to be in the way for hot gluing, so just going to clip the frames off now. Clip off that extra wire binding. Alright. Good to go for the hot glue. Go for hot glue. My drill has a big gap in it, so if yours doesn't, you don't need as much glue as I use. But my drill's chuck has a big gap in it, so I need a big blob of glue. It's kind of a pain, but okay, so here comes the not so fun part. The fusing of this thing, because it's not tight on the core wires. If you screw it up, it can fold over on itself. So I like to take these kind of slow and try to get them to fall in there nice and perfect. There's no shame in taking your time with these kinds of builds. Some people can do them in 10 minutes. Other people it takes a couple hours. Me, I like doing shit slow and doing it right. I don't have to waste a lot of wire on practicing or what have you. You get in a good rhythm, you find your angle, you can go a little faster. But slow and steady wins the race when it comes to these things. Because if you do go too fast and hit a spot where it's not good, then you're going to fuck up those snake spines. And I guess when you're scraping them, you can kind of get it to the layback right. But me, I'm a perfectionist and I do see it. And once I see it, I can't unsee it. So, like I said, just slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so that one frame is starting to pop out. I'll go ahead and give that a little pinch. And this will not bother the end result because I'm using nylon pliers. Sorry, this is a fucked up angle for my phone. Alright, so you get the idea with that. I'm going to fuse the rest of this up and then we'll continue the tutorial in the next clip. Okay, so there she is, all fused up. Got the whole length ready to go. And you'll see that the fuse is uneven in spots. That's just from pinching as you go. Not a big deal. It'll all get flattened out a little bit here. But you can see how the final fusing holds on to those two 28 gauge frames. But since we space claptoned onto a 24 gauge originally, there's spaces in the fuse clapton. It sticks out. It sticks away further. Well, you know, you can see what I'm saying. See right there? Right there is where I was telling you to be careful when you're fusing. And that's what happens. And we can pound out most of that with the hammer when we flatten it out and scrape the sides. But that's how it's going to look when you're done fusing it. Never mind the skin flakes. We're going to run it through an ultrasonic when we're done here anyway. If you don't have an ultrasonic, I definitely recommend rinsing these coils when they're all done and wrapped up. Rinse them really well. I use Dawn dish soap, and then I'll rinse them really well after that. Anyway, so right here on the end, I was going to show you. Where are we at here? This is what you want to avoid. Avoid skips. Avoid. Let me grab my pointer here. Avoid skips. Avoid having skipped that loop right there, because that is not going to fold over right. Okay, but this is the very end, so I'm not too worried about that. From there on, it's fused nice. And that bowing right there you see in the fuse. Where's my pointer here? That bowing that you see in the fuse right here, that's from having to reverse, go forward, reverse, go forward. If you start missing gaps, that bowing is going to happen, and it might show at the very end. So this is why I say go slow. Okay, so now we got the whole strand is all fused up. It's ready to go, ready for the flattening process. Now, being that this is going to tend to warp the wire, I like to cut it in half at this point, because it helps decrease the bowing in each coil, and makes it generally a little easier to work with. So what I'll do is I'll balance it on my finger, and that'll generally give me about the halfway point. So we'll give that a clip there. And boom. That's pretty close. I did have a bad spot on the end of this one coil, so we'll get rid of that. That was just the final little bit before I got to the end there. So you'll see we've got about 2 6-inch sticks. Okay, that's more than enough for a dual coil. Okay, so what you're going to need to do the flattening process is some sort of flat metal. I have this anvil that I got from a buddy of mine. It's nice and flat. I can hold it in my hand. Nice. And I'll hold on to the wire with my fingers. You're also going to need a hammer. I got a dedicated hammer. I got it from Harbor Freight, a couple bucks. And This thing has never seen a nail. It's never seen metal other than coils. This is a dedicated hammer. It's nice and smooth. You don't need a jeweler's hammer. I mean, I guess they're nice, but I don't see the reason to pay, you know, 14, 15, whatever dollars for a jeweler's hammer when little Harbor Freight, small, little household hammer will do the trick. No problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place it on the anvil and try to not get glare. You don't want it right up to the edge. And I'm going to tap at it. You don't want to do it too hard, but you will see it start to flatten out. And that's what you want to see. You can hear I'm not hitting it very hard, and I'm going up and down and up and down the same about ½ inch, and then I'll advance it forward a little bit. And then I'll hold it like so. And I'll do the same thing starting where I left off. You don't want to start where you haven't flattened it already. I guess maybe you could. I don't know, I've never tried it. So as it starts to flatten out, I will hit it just a little bit harder with each pass. It's not super dramatic, hard hitting. Your hammer is contoured. It is contoured, so if you see a spot and you're tapping at it and it's not flattening, try hitting it with different parts of the hammer. It's the whole head of it is round. So if you got one spot that just doesn't seem to want to flatten, I'll move my hammer around in a circle and try to get that spot flattened out. If you still can't get it, don't worry, because when we're done with the whole strand, we're going to flip it over and tap the other side again. And if you're thinking poster roller, this doesn't work. Poster rollers don't work for this. They only close up so much, and you need it to be super flat. I like to set my anvil on some books. I got my anvil sitting on some books on my desk, so it's not quite so loud. You don't want to hit it too hard because there is ribbon in there, and if you do hit it too hard, that ribbon could cut into your fuse wire, so you really want to be delicate with it. Okay, now I'm to the end. When you get to the end, I just hold it with the one finger. And I don't start at the end now. I start from the middle part and work my way down. If it's popped up on the anvil, don't worry about it. The force of the hammer will drive it down. It doesn't need to sit on the metal is what I'm getting at. Okay, so now you can see how that wire is kind of bent and wonky, and that's fine. Don't worry about that. It is not going to remain straight. So I've flipped it over now, and we're just going to go back and tap the other side as well. And you can see little variations in it as you're tapping it. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to tap all that out and get it all the same kind of sheen. I'll use the shine of my light to reflect off the surface of the coil. That's how I can see it, the uneven spaces. Okay, so here you can see on the bottom is the one I just got done flattening. And the one on the top I haven't flattened yet. So you can kind of see the difference. It's all nice and flattened. In fact, I might go back and flatten that one a little bit more. What you're looking for is that nice flatness to it. See along the Clapton how it looks nice and flat. That's what you're looking for. Whereas this one is all rounded. You want it to look flat like that. And that way they're going to bend over nicely. So I'm going to go back and flatten this one a little bit more, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so I've gone through and I've flattened that all out real good. Now the next part is where it gets a little time consuming. Let's call it that. So what you're going to need is a pair of toothless pliers and a small flat-headed screwdriver. It's got to be flat. It can't be a Phillips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the wire so that just the Clapton that I want to bend is sticking out the top of the pliers. I don't know if I can zoom this. Yeah, I can't zoom this camera in this mode. But before I'm done, I'll show you guys how I hold it. So, it's nice to have something that you can lean on, and it's nice to have a pair of goggles because you're gonna want to see what you're looking at. You're gonna want to see it up close. So I'm taking the flat side of the screwdriver and I'm scraping at it in the direction that I want it to lay down, and that's what's going to make the snake spine. So let's go ahead and give this a couple of scratches. And you're actually doing it kind of vigorously. And you can only really scrape the width of your pliers. So if you have a wider set of toothless pliers, that would be great. I've been looking for one. If I ever find one, you know, I'm sure they got one on Amazon somewhere, but for now I got these thin ones that it works. So we're just gonna keep on scratching. And the purpose of doing it under my magnifier here is because if you don't use a magnifier, it can look like you got it even, but it's really not. You really kind of gotta look at it under some sort of magnification. And what I forgot to mention earlier when I was flattening the wire was you don't need an anvil any piece of hard metal, not aluminum, not copper, but hard metal, like a piece of steel. Tool steel is the best. It works really well for flattening wire. If you don't have an anvil and you don't have money, most people have a crescent wrench or an adjustable wrench of some sort in their garage. For instance, that whole long piece right there is nice flat metal. Obviously you might want to clean it up somehow because it's got some rust on it, but let me make sure it's clean before you hammer coil out on it. But that nice flat piece of metal works good for this. This can be a lot of readjusting, and your hands will get sore. Just keep at it. If you get one spot that's not wanting to lay down nice, just keep going at it. Keep scratching at it. Do your best. And it will eventually lay down. Now this is producing a lot of little metal flakes. I can see it under my magnification. So that's why I say you really want to rinse these coils out good before you vape on them, because you don't want to be inhaling that crap. It gets tiresome holding that pliers after a while, but it's really the only good way to do it. I've heard of people that fold each one down with the fingernail. Fuck that. This is way faster. I'd rather go through a little bit of pain and get it done quicker. Let's see here. Lost my spot. Almost there, I can feel the end. Ouch. Alright. So that was one side. I'll get it all done, and then we'll continue on with the video in the next clip. Okay guys, so you'll have to forgive the shakiness of this. I don't have the best tripod for my camera, but I'm going to try to show you the bending process. So this here is my pliers, and this will be my flat-headed screwdriver. Do my best to show you this, how this flattening process goes. So you just keep raking at it and adjusting it. Damn autofocus. I never go much more than the width of my pliers because the wire can bend. I'll show you guys. The wire does bend a little bit while you're doing this, but it's not too dramatic. It will have a natural bend in it sometimes from the flattening process and the scraping process. It'll get a little bit of a bending in it, but it doesn't affect it much in the wrapping process. Come on, focus. I wonder if I can lock my focus. Well, there, I think I turned it off. That would be ideal. Turn that damn autofocus off. So usually I'm doing this under my head magnifier. I'm trying to do it over my phone screen, so bear with me. It's gonna pop in and out of focus. I'm sorry about that, but I'm trying my best. So I'm gonna readjust it. And I try to grab on that flattened part of the Clapton right here. You'll see in the tip. I'll try to grab that flattened part of the Clapton and not the fuse over the ribbon. Just try your best. You do have to kind of squeeze hard because the snake spine is going to want to run away from your screwdriver no matter what you do. And you can see here, oh, stop that. Let's do it autofocus. Yeah, well, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there you can kind of see it on my finger. You will create little bits of metal right there at the tip of my screwdriver. There's a little bit of metal on the end of my finger. And that's from the scraping process, so you definitely want to rinse these things before you try to vape them, guys. Always build and vape safe. I can't stress that enough. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then we'll pop back out for the last little bit. Okay guys, so this is day 2 of this build. I ran out of time last night, but I got the first half. I actually got a dual coil set up for somebody, so we're working on the second half of it now to finish this off. I've finished the scraping of both sides, so I got them both bent back how I want them. And now the final process before I actually coil it is I'll go back over it with the hammer and anvil one more time just to kind of get everything back in place. If there's anything that got moved or squished in the pliers. Just gets everything all nice and done up for the coiling process. Like right there is a spot, and now it's gone. Like I said previously in a different clip I made, you use your lighting to see how flat the thing looks while you're tapping at it. You'll see what I mean when you do it. It's hard to explain until you can actually see it yourself, and I can't show that on my camera. It's not something I'm set up to be able to show you. So this process goes a little quicker than the original flattening. I'm just using the light to glare off of the wire and show me any shadows or irregularities is what I'm looking for. And darkness to the wire, kind of, I guess you could say. I'll just give it a little tap here and there. Sound like Bob Ross. We'll paint a happy little tree. We're gonna pound a happy little coil. Alright. Okay. I think that's going to do it. You can do the other side too if you want, but that side's going to be the inside of my coil, so I'm not too worried about it. We're going to... Oh, this is what I was talking about with the whole process. It's going to put a bow in that wire with the hammering. The flattening process is usually what does this. But, you know, if you guys slip with your screwdriver while you're scraping at it, you know, you could get a weird bend in it too. So just be careful. Don't go nuts. Take your time. So when you wrap these, you really don't want the two sides of the wraps to touch, but you do want them to be close. But if they touch, they're going to throw off those bends that you so painstakingly put in there. So you want to keep it close, but try not to let them touch. And we're going to do a 4 wrap dual coil. Since it is pretty flat, we're not going to be able to do much more than a 4 wrap. And depending on how big of a perfectionist you are, try to get those wraps as close as you can. And I'll just put a little bend in it. So install is nice and easy. Well, there you go. And there's a Snakespine coil. I am going to go through and tighten this up and try to clean it up a little bit. It's the perfectionist in me. I guess that's going to be about as good as it's going to get. So I'll get this phone off the tripod here. And let's have a little peek. There she is, guys and gals. If you did it right, that's how she should look. You can see the sides are all bent pretty evenly. You know, little imperfections are going to show up on macro, but with the naked eye, you're not going to see those tiny little imperfections. Oh yeah, That's the Snakespine coil. Alright, so there we have it. That has been the frame staple Snakespine coil. If you guys want to give it a try, I encourage you to leave a comment and show me what you came up with. And this coil is definitely one that you can play around with. There's lots of different variants you can do. You don't have to add ribbon to the middle. You can just do 2 frames and flatten it and scrape the sides just like you did. I did a corrugated one once. That was a pain in the ass, but it does work. I invite anybody else to try and put anything else in the middle that you can think of, because really the variants are endless. So yeah, this has been Big D. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.